If you're a new SDR looking for a real cold call script that will actually start helping you set more appointments, then this is the video for you. If you're tired of surfing the internet for real examples of cold call scripts and the only ones you find have cringy pattern interrupts and permission-based openers with questions you just can't picture yourself actually asking or using, made by people who often don't actually cold call, this is the video for you. In this video, I want to break down step by step my actual cold call script that I have used for over 6 years. I've booked hundreds of meetings with this appointment, and I've taught it to many different people who've experienced the same success. And at the end, I'm going to deliver a live role play of how I actually put it to practice. So let's get into it. So my goal here is to break down this process and make it as simple as possible and easy to understand so that you can actually start using this on your day-to-day. So I'm going to give you an example, but it's not going to be the exact words that you're going to take from this video. It's going to be this process so that you can implement it in your own script based on where you work, who your target persona is, what priorities and challenges you solve for them, etc. So in the name of simplicity, my cold calling script is exactly 2 steps. The first step being giving an assumptive formality, and the second one being delivering who you are, why you're calling, and what you want in 60 seconds. So let's start with the assumptive formality and what it's not. It's not permission-based, it's not a pattern interrupt, it's not, hey, do you have 27 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling, and then you can decide whether you want to continue the conversation, or, hey, this is a cold call. Do you want to hang up on me now, or do you want to give me a chance here? Look, if you use that stuff and you actually like it and you feel comfortable with it, use it. I'm not telling you to stop. What's important is that you feel comfortable. But in the sales niche, it's conventional wisdom that you want to be using these permission-based openers and these pattern interrupts, when in reality, I would say 80 to 90% of people, myself included when I was new, felt extremely uncomfortable using that stuff. It made me sound less confident. I felt gimmicky. It didn't feel natural, and it impacted my ability to make cold calls effectively and the amount of cold calls I made. It gave me more cold call anxiety knowing I had to open up my cold calls with these crazy pattern interrupts, not knowing what their response was going to be or how they were going to take it. If you have the right tone and inflection, you can make those types of openers work, but in reality, it usually takes someone with years of experience to be able to hone in their tonality to actually make them effective. And for new SDRs, it actually just ends up doing more harm than good. The other tactical issue I have with permission-based openers is that it opens the door for variance. If you ask them, hey, did I catch you at a bad time, or do you have 30 seconds to talk to me? There's a million different answers that they could give. You have to be prepared to handle all of these unknown answers in whatever direction they take the call. Hey, no, I'm going into a meeting, or no, hey, I'm taking my kid to soccer practice right now. Can you call me back at a different time? Why open the door to that possibility and open the door to variance? So instead, I say give an assumptive formality, which reduces variance. And the way you give an assumptive formality, or at least the way I do it, is to say, how are you? But the key is to use a downward inflecting tone that signals that this is a formality and that you're assuming you're going to keep talking. You just need a formality or a quick phrase back from them, and then you're going to take control and go into who, why, what from there. So it sounds something like, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? So I sound what I call professionally enthusiastic. I sound like I want to be there. I sound excited. I sound respectful, but I'm not also asking them to actually elaborate on how their day is going. And the prospect doesn't want you to do that either. No one wants to actually talk to a random stranger about what they're doing that day and what they had for breakfast. But that's what the upward inflecting how are you can do. And it can really throw off the prospect. And it's this little detail that can make all the difference. So if instead I said, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you today? To them, that signals like you're not here to be brief and that this conversation could go on for a while. And usually you're catching these prospects off guard, out of the blue in the middle of their workday. They could be doing who knows what. They could be very busy. They usually are. And the last thing they want to do is chit chat on the phone with some random stranger. They would actually prefer it if you just get to your point. So that's what the assumptive formality does. Hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? And once you do that, really all they can give you back is either some form of formality or short phrase back. They might say, good, how are you? They might sound confused. They could say, where'd you say I'm good? Where'd you say you were calling from? Or what is this regarding? It doesn't matter, because once they just give me that phrase back, I'm gonna take control by saying, good, I'm just reaching out because, or good, the reason I'm calling is you're delivering on your promise that you're here to be brief. So now we're 50% of the way there. That is step 1. Get really good at giving that downward inflecting assumptive formality. In step 2, we're going to take control and deliver who we are, why we're calling, and what we want within 60 seconds of the call. We're going to answer those 3 questions that they're subconsciously wondering. When they pick up a phone and they realize, I don't know this person, I wasn't expecting this call, they're wondering, who are you? Why are you calling me? What do you want? And here I break down specifically what you need to answer in that who, why, what. So the who is however you describe yourself. This is pretty simple. It's basically your role in the company you work for, but you can make it sound more targeted based on who you're calling. So some ideas that popped ahead is you can make it specific to the industry that this person is a part of, what company they work for, what their job title is. So if you're calling someone in the manufacturing industry, you can say you're part of the strategic manufacturing team, or in healthcare, the strategic healthcare team. And you can make it specific to their industry, their role, and their company. The next is the why piece. This is the most important. This is the value part of the value statement, how you can actually help them and the purpose for your call. And the 2 key pieces are priorities and outcomes you solve. You need to name those, and you need to name how you solve them. I'm going to show an example at the end of the video, but those are the 2 key pieces of value. Name priorities that this person cares about, and the outcomes that this person is seeking, like what their job role entails and why they're hired at that company, like what business outcomes are they expected to produce, and then how you solve them. And this doesn't need to be really in depth, it can be pretty high level. And then third is what you want, which is the step that most reps skip. And 99% of the time, what you want is time on their calendar. It could be an event you're trying to drive attendance to, or a webinar or something like that, but it's your call to action. It's your CTA. What do you want? You have to finish by stating your intent. A lot of reps wait way too long to state their intent on cold calls. So I know this might sound like a lot, but now I'm going to show you how easy it is to put this into practice using an example that I just wrote for myself. This is going to be the lens. I work in tech sales, so this is going to be coming from a lens of someone who works in tech sales, but it doesn't matter. This applies to all industries. It's really this structure that you use. So in this example, I'm going to be a tech sales rep selling HR software, calling into someone in an HR department in healthcare. Hey John, this is Connor Murray calling from X Company. How are you? Good. I'm just reaching out because I'm part of the strategic healthcare team that supports Y Company regarding HR management applications, and we typically work on priorities related to talent acquisition and employee engagement, usually by centralizing the employee lifecycle on a common platform and reducing the amount of disconnected processes involved, which gives managers a lot more visibility and planning capabilities. And I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I'm more just looking to set aside some time for our team to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward. Are you free next week on Wednesday or Thursday? So you can see both steps in action there. Step 1 only takes like 5 to 10 seconds. After you give that downward inflecting formality, hopefully they just make it easy and give you a formality back. Maybe they make it tricky and they say, good, where'd you say you were calling from? In which case I'd say, yeah, I'm calling from X Company. I'm just reaching out because I just neutralize it. I don't let it faze me. Nothing is going to stop me from getting into that next step, which is who, why, what. So then we go right into step 2 within 5 to 10 seconds. And the who I was in this case was I said I was part of the strategic healthcare team that supported them regarding HR management applications. I'm part of the HR team. I'm calling someone in HR, so that's the application set I called out, and they work in the healthcare industry. But if you were going to call someone in HR and manufacturing, you could use that same script, but just replace healthcare with manufacturing. And then the why you're calling, I named those 2 high-level priorities, talent acquisition and employee engagement. If I was calling a different type of persona in HR, maybe someone who works in payroll, I would have used different priorities there. But I named those 2 high-level priorities, and then I named how we solve them by centralizing the process and giving managers more visibility. So in a sentence or 2, I was able to name those high-level priorities and outcomes that they're responsible for and how we solve them and achieve those business objectives. And then I went right ahead to time on their calendar. I said, are you free next week on Wednesday or Thursday? I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I'm more just looking to set aside some time next week. Now this prospect knows what your call is about, their defenses and that guard are gonna drop, and you've given yourself a shot on net. You don't have a chance of booking the meeting unless you actually ask for what you want, which is time on their calendar. A lot of times reps wait way too long to ask these types of questions, and then the call ends up ending or they get hung up on before they even got a chance to ask. And there's 4 main reasons why why this script is so effective. The first is that you can be targeted at scale. Using some of the examples I just talked about, you can easily replace a word or two like manufacturing with healthcare and make it more specific and more relevant to the person you're calling. The real way to do this is to make as many lists as possible with as many similar characteristics as possible. So you want to make a list of people, your prospects that work in the manufacturing industry, in HR, so that you can just keep that script the same and only have to change their name. You don't want to call someone in manufacturing and HR and then call someone who works in marketing in the healthcare industry on your next call. That's just going to make it too hard to go back and forth. You want to do them all at once, as many similar characteristics at the same time. Two is that we take control. It's not going to be the prospect that's in control. That's when you get those defensive tones and those guards. What is this call about? I'm going into a meeting. I didn't even give them a chance to speak. Other than that assumptive formality, I just assumed control. The burden of proof is on me to deliver value, and I told them who I am, why I'm calling, what I want. Now this person's like, oh, okay, this person's been here and done this before. Maybe it is worth 15 or 20 minutes of my time to see if they can actually help with one of my key business priorities or objectives. Number three, we get ourselves on the playing field. That's what I was just talking about. By asking for time on their calendar, having a call to action, what we want, that gets us on the playing field. If you don't actually ask for what you want, you're not on the playing field. You have a 0% chance of booking the meeting. Just by asking for time on their calendar, you go from a 0% chance to a non-0% chance. Even if your script is awful and you're stumbling over your words, if you at least ask for time on their calendar, you have a chance of booking the meeting. So you got to make sure you do that. And then fourth, and arguably most importantly, is that this is a measurable process. So when you deliver who, why, what in 60 seconds, there's only 3 possible outcomes after you get that out. If you physically get out who, why, what, they could either say, sounds great, awesome, yeah, I am free next Wednesday or Thursday. That's the dream scenario. Doesn't often always work out that way, but that's a scenario, is a yes. It could be a hard no. It could be, thanks, buddy, I'm all good, click, and you don't even have a chance. That's a hard no. Or they give you some form of objection, like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Our team's swamped with a whole bunch of other priorities right now, so I don't think it makes sense to meet. That's a legitimate objection. So it's either yes, no, or objection. Be prepared for the most common objections to give yourself the best chance of booking the meeting. And you can start measuring how many yeses do I get off my value statements? How many hard no's? How many objections do I get, and what objections are I getting? This is how you can actually start measuring your results and figuring out where you need to focus. So hope this helped. Use it in your own role. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.